Hey, hello. You know what? It is finally Friday.
Without you, I'm driving lost in a stare. Without you, I feel like I'm running scared. Since you're gone, I haven't bothered to comb my hair on Friday night. But Friday night's gonna be alright. It's gonna be right. It's gonna be alright now, baby. Friday night's gonna be alright. It's gonna be right. It's gonna be alright now, baby. So get ready for Friday night.
God aften, MK'er, drenge og piger, mænd og kvinder, mine damer og herrer. Spænd sikkerhedsselen godt rundt om ørerne, for nu er der endnu en gang et musikkig ind i fremtiden. Det her er selvfølgelig endnu en gang 1999 musiksignaler for idioter. I de næste 1999 sekunder, det nogen kalder en halv time, er jeg din medastronaut på rumrejsen gennem musikvideoernes forunderlige togebanker op i de tynde luftlag.
On this channel, I talk a lot about music, and of course that's probably why you tuned in as well today. Yeah, I'm still gonna talk about music, so don't worry, but I have a bit of an introduction here. I use this channel as a form of a musical diary for myself, to pick up things from my memory bank that I remember had a really impact on me when it comes to listening to certain kinds of music, discovering different artists and all of that, all the way back from the early 1980s up until today. And sometimes in my memory bank things pop up from the world of television as well. TV programs, I've done a couple of those here as well on my channel, looking back on an all-nighter that I had with a friend, actually 2 all-nighters with 2 different programs containing music from all around the world. And today I'm going to highlight yet another TV program that had a really big impact on me. I've learned since then that there were probably just 5 episodes made of this particular TV program that I'm going to talk about today. It was called 1999. It was on Danish TV in 1985. And if you're wondering, yeah, I grew up in the southern parts of Sweden, and we also had access to Danish TV because of the closeness of Denmark. We watched a lot of Danish TV as well. And this program, 1999, was led by a guy called Kim Schumacher. And I wasn't really familiar with Kim Schumacher other than this program. I might have seen him in some other Danish TV program at some point, but this was his program. He was leading this one. But I also learned since then that he was a really important figure in the Danish music life, really. A DJ, presenter. He had his own radio program in Denmark where he introduced, I think he was the first really to introduce a lot of the modern music in the 1980s, you know, like hip-hop, electro, and the list goes on and on and on. He was really in the forefront when it comes to new music in Denmark. And sadly, we lost him way too early in 1990. He passed away due to complications to AIDS. So really sad, because he was a really colorful person, really funny as well. And I wish I knew more about him back in the day. But hey, that was a good introduction for me to experience Kim Schumacher and 1999 in 1985. I think I watched 2 episodes of these 5 episodes that were recorded. And one of them, and it's the one we're going to talk about today, ended up on a VHS cassette in our home. So I watched that over and over again. I had friends over. We watched it because it was such a fascinating 33 minutes really that we're talking about here, because he had things from all different genres really. And you're going to see that we have a couple of entries from 1984 in here as well, because music came to Scandinavia a bit later than it was actually released in other places around the world. But yeah, to us it was brand new music, and in a lot of these cases new artists as well, artists we never heard of before, and we were absolutely mesmerized by this. So this is what I'm going to talk about today. And by the way, 1999 could reflect the year 1999, but it was actually meant to be the number of seconds this program lasted. So 1999 is roughly 33 minutes. And I really tried to find more episodes of this show, 1999, but I haven't been able to find anything. The clips that we're going to watch today is an old rip that I had since years and years back. It might have come from my VHS cassette, it might come from somewhere else, I can't really remember now, but this is the one that I had on my VHS cassette, this specific episode. But I would love to see some of the other episodes, because he had a very particular style of presenting, right? And I wanted to know if that changed throughout the different episodes, but I don't know. So if anyone from Denmark is watching this, and you might have seen some of these episodes, you might enlighten me and the rest of the viewers here by putting something down in the comments. I would love to hear more about this.
Men lad os starte med alle legemsdele plantet på jorden. Lad 1999 lægge ud med et eksotisk kig ind i en fremmed verden, hvor mænd har skæg og har det skæg, hvor kvinder er villige og har ben at gå på. Her kommer CC Top med nummeret Legs.
And all thanks to Kim Schumacher and his program 1999, I fell in love with CC Top's Legs. To the extent that I bought the 12-inch of it, the metal mix, the nearly 8-minute long metal mix. And if you've seen any of my other videos here on my channel throughout the years, you might have heard me talking about how I didn't like guitar-based music back in the 1980s. Well, I would say this is one of the exceptions, really, because CC Top wasn't really hard rock, especially this era. Not the earlier CC Top, but this era when they had the Eliminator album out with Legs and many other great songs from that one. I really liked that sound, and they were really cool, of course, as well. Yeah. So yeah, thanks to Kim Schumacher and 1999, I went out and bought this one, and it's still in my collection. I still like this one. It's really good. Yeah. And then we went on to Kim presenting the next artist, and this is where I really wanted to know if that his concept of presenting different artists in the studio changed from program to program, because in this one we could see the next artist, they're just sitting in the background. It's not like they're sitting beside him, they're going to do an interview or something like that. They're not in focus. Kim is in focus here, which I absolutely love, and the artists are sitting right behind him. Well, this next artist is more than talking, and they actually get to say something here. They get to present the new single, so let's watch that.
Fra Tyskland har jeg netop nu et par meget gode nære venner i studiet. 2 talentfulde unge sprogeksperter, der netop nu for tiden lærer Europas diskoteker af hjerte, trods tidens kynisme, stadigvæk rimer på smerte. Hello guys, and welcome to 1999. Welcome to Copenhagen. What's up? What have you got for us?
Hi Kim,
Hi 1999 fans,
my name is Dieter,
and my name is Thomas.
together we call us Modern Talking.
And this is the video for our song that Europe has received so well.
You're my heart.
You're my soul. Enjoy.
You're my heart, you're my soul. I'll keep it shining everywhere I go. You're my heart, you're my soul. I'll be holding you forever, stay with you together. You're my heart, you're my soul. Yeah, I feel that I love the crowd. You're my heart, you're my soul. That's the only thing I really know.
Modern Talking, yes, what a duo, and a bunch of hits they had as well throughout the years. But I do believe that this was the first single, the debut single, You're My Heart, You're My Soul. And I do like most of the singles they released. They're very catchy, nice productions, and all of that. But that's not something that I would have admitted in 1985, because I know none of my mates admitted to liking Modern Talking. None of the boys in my school never said anything about Modern Talking being a great band. No, that was something for the girls. Sadly, that was the thing back then. So, yeah, secretly, I admired them. My sister, by the way, was a huge Modern Talking fan. So I remember when she saw this video, because I do believe this was the first time we saw a video of them, and also of them being in the studio and talking to us and presenting themselves. It was a big moment for her. Yeah. But granted, even back then, I found them a bit cheesy, the way they looked and the way they behaved in the videos and all that. So yeah, but I did like the music. But I have to point out something when it comes to the cheesiness of this. I always found them a bit of an odd duo, really, a bit of a mismatch, because you got Thomas there as a singer, a very handsome guy, very charismatic. And of course, you got Dieter as well, a very famous producer from Germany. Just being the other half of a duo, and it's a clear mismatch, and perhaps that was the intention of it, because he's so cheesy in all of these videos. I just have to point it out, but in a very fun way. He had his charm as well. He had his kind of charisma, but it was really a mismatch. Am I alone in thinking this? But yeah, what a great duo. I'm so glad that they got together and made all of these singles. And eventually I picked it up. Originally on a 7-inch. It took me a couple of years before I actually picked it up. Sad, isn't it? But yeah. And just a couple of years ago, I upgraded that 7-inch single to a maxi single. So now I got what they call the special disco mix of this one. You're My Heart, You're My Soul. So yeah, once again, we can thank Kim Schumacher and the program 1999 for introducing us to Modern Talking, or at least see them for the first time ever in a video, and also presenting their own song. Yeah, but now this is over, and we're going to go over to the next segment, where he is actually going to introduce an artist that was absolutely brand new to me, but I fell head over heels for the music.
Personligt er mit ego ikke større, end at jeg stadigvæk kan gå på vandet. Og hvis du også kan klatre tørskoet i land på kanten af 1999, ja, så har du nu mulighed for at møde en af tidens danske unge stræbsomme, der vil frem her i livet. Det er Elisabeth, vores allesammens brystbolsje, som har fået øje på Kørvel på kajen. Her kommer Elisabeth, en sømand som dig.
So even if we were very close to Denmark back in the days, and we went over there frequently to buy groceries and things like that, because it was cheaper at that time to go over from Sweden to Denmark and buy them, we didn't really got exposed to that much of Danish music, really, and certainly not Elisabeth, because she was an unknown for me. Granted, this was her first solo effort. She was previously in a band called Vox Pop in Denmark. But I never heard of Elizabeth, even after this transmission. Never heard her on Swedish radio, never saw a video on Swedish television and so forth and so on. So very little exposure to a lot of Danish artists, but I'm really glad that I picked up on this. Like I said, I fell head over heels for this song, and Sømand som dig, a Sailor Like You, a rough translation of that title. And just the new wave sound of this and the way she sung the song as well, it just appealed to me. So many years after this, I think 6 years after this, she released another album called Sotto Voce, and that's when I actually picked up for real on Elizabeth's music. But that's a story for another time, and I already mentioned it here in previous episodes here on my channel. But yeah, so nowadays I have a full collection of Elizabeth records, but this one was her first single, I believe, from her first self-titled album called Elizabeth. So here it is. And this one I picked up after she released Sotto Voce. I went over to Denmark and I tried to pick up as much Elizabeth that I could, and I've never been disappointed by any of her albums. And when he signs off this video, once again we got the artist in the studio. We got Elizabeth sitting there behind Kim on a stool, but she doesn't say anything. Once again, no interview. She didn't even introduce her own single. She's just there like a prop. And I think that is an absolute brilliant move. We're going to play your new single. Do you want to come to the studio? Yeah, of course. Sit over here. You're just going to sit here while Kim talks. Absolutely fantastic. And frankly, I think it was a mutual agreement between Elizabeth and Kim at this point, because Elizabeth was a bit avant-garde in her way as well. So I think she liked this concept, this idea that they had for this. Yeah, but absolutely brilliant stuff from Elizabeth. And I was so thankful for both Kim Schumacher and once again the production team of 1999 to introduce me to Elizabeth. But now let's move on to the next video that Kim was presenting in this very program. And my 14-year-old mind was absolutely blown away by this. This was super good.
Ne, jeg er alles super good. Ne, jeg er alles super good. Ne, jeg er alles super good. Ne, jeg er alles super good. Ne, jeg er alles super good. Ne, jeg er alles super good. Ne, jeg er alles super good. Ne, jeg er alles super good. Ne, jeg er alles super good. Ne, jeg er alles super good. Ne, jeg er alles super good. Ne.
Yeah, so this was Arno Steffen with Supergut, ne? Yeah, I never heard of Arno Steffen at this point. I could hear that they were singing in German. It was nonsensical lyrics, really. A funny video, a funny track, and even back then I realized this was a bit tongue-in-cheek, a bit of a novelty single, perhaps to highlight the contrast between the working class and the upper class. Who knows? But that's at least what we see in the video here. But absolutely fantastic production. I fell head over heels for the nonsensical lyrics here, and the beats, the whole production, the experimental elements of it, the sampling, all of it. I was like, wow. Because you have to remember, this is 1985. The year before, in 1984, I was more or less introduced to Depeche Mode for the first time, and Kraftwerk, Duff, and groups like that. So this was right in my wheelhouse. It was funny, but at the same time, a very serious production behind it. And it wasn't until years and years after the fact when I managed to hunt down the single itself that I realized it is actually produced by none other than Conny Plank. And Conny Plank's been involved with a lot of different artists, worked on early stages with Kraftwerk, with DAF, Devo, Eurythmics, the list goes on and on and on. He's also been involved with Brian Eno, of course. So a very talented producer and engineer that sadly we lost way too early. I had to pick this one up in Germany at some point because, let's face it, it wouldn't be hit anywhere else really. And Arno Steffen himself, I learned through a documentary that I watched a couple of years ago, was a very close friend to Conny Plank, and it was a very touching documentary piece that I saw featuring Arno Steffen. And when I saw that, I was like, wait, Arno Steffen, is it that Arno Steffen that made Supergut? No. Yeah. So first and foremost, I think Arno Steffen is a music producer himself, but also was part of a comedy team as well. I'm not sure if they made any TV programs and things like that, but yeah, a lot of tongue-in-cheek going on here, but an absolutely fantastic single they released with this one. Industrial, synth poppy, and ridiculous, all at the same time. Just brilliant stuff.
Das ist alles super gut, ne? Das ist alles super gut, ne? Das ist alles super gut, ne? Das ist alles super gut, ne?
Sjove, primitive urskovslyde fra computerlaboratoriet, Arno Steffen og Supergood Næ.
And now to the next video that Kim presented on this very program. And yet another track that blew my young mind. He presented us with a brand new video from a project called Time Zone, featuring Africa Bambaataa and Johnny Lydon. Or is it Lydon? I think it's Johnny Lydon. Yeah, you know. He called himself Johnny Rotten while in the Sex Pistols, and of course the very memorable front figure for that band and the singer. He left that all behind, of course, at this point. He already started up Public Image Limited, and now he teamed up with Africa Bambaataa in this wonderful track.
En lang række musikere føler, at den 3. verdenskrig hele tiden puster hele menneskeheden ned ad nakken. En af dem er den engelske John Lydon, den anden er hip-hop-guruen Africa Bambaataa, og de to har slået sig sammen i det, de kalder Time Zone, der her kommer med og fortæller om verdens sidste dødskamp, verdens ødelæggelse på World Destruction.
The prophecies down through the years, the biblical prophecies of what would portend the coming of Armageddon and so forth. Theologians for the last decade or more have believed that this was true, that the prophecies are coming together that portend that. But no one knows whether Armageddon, those prophecies mean that Armageddon is 1,000 years away or day after tomorrow. Now, with regard to having to say whether we would try to survive in the event of a nuclear war, of course we would.
Speak about destruction. Speak about destruction. Speak about destruction. This is a world destruction. Your life ain't nothing. The human race is becoming a disgrace. Countries are fighting in chemical warfare. Giving a death of the people who live.
This was new to me as well, listening to Africa Bambaataa's beats here and Johnny's or John Lydon's very distinctive voice contrasting each other, but works so well together. I think it was an absolutely masterpiece of a record. And the themes of this, of course, the fear of World War III, nuclear destruction, all that, is sadly still very, very current in our times, sadly. there was a lot of singles around at this time, the year before. We, of course, had Frankie Goes to Hollywood's Two Tribes that tackled more or less the same themes. But this was more direct, more in your face, and a very, very different production, of course. And I wasn't aware of Time Zone before. Very little did I know about both Johnny Rotten, I was about to say, John Lydon here, and Afrika Bambaataa. I have gotten into, the breakdance, the electro, the things that were happening the previous year, and even spilling into 1985, of course. But those were mostly the hit records of the time, like Break Machine and the Rocksteady Crew and things like that. But this was heavier to me, more hard-hitting and very real in a way. They tackled something that was happening right then and there in our world. World destruction. And it took me ages before I found this 12-inch. It took me a couple of years because none of our local record stores where I lived did stock this one. It didn't chart, to my knowledge, in Sweden. So, but now I got it, and I love it. Fantastic stuff with Time Zone featuring Afrika Bambaataa and John Lydon.
Kaboom! Kaboom!
The next video presented on this program came from a band that I never heard of before or since watching this in 1985. It's Eddie and the Soul Band and the brand new single Theme from Shaft.
Black private dick that's a sex machine to all the chicks. That's right.
Yeah, this is a really funky production, I think. I appreciate it more today than I did in 1985, because back then I remember thinking, oh, the video is really cool with all the dances and all that. But the music, I probably glossed it over. I don't have any lasting memories around thinking that the music was great or anything like that. But today, the older Tobias is really appreciating this one. And when doing some research on Eddie and the Soul Band in preparation for this video, I found out that the 12-inch released at the time did include a Ben Liebrand remix as well. So I'm really curious about that, because I think this is funky. It was very fresh for its time. Granted, the Eddie, which I assume is the singer here, can't really match the voice of Isaac Hayes. I mean, who can? But I think they do a decent job of this one, doing the cover of Theme from Shaft. The next video, however, was something that I really anticipated back in 1985, and probably the reason why I taped this on VHS in the first place, because they had promised us that Frankie Goes to Hollywood would be performing on this very program. And I wasn't let down. Kim started introducing his old friend, Holly Johnson, which is, of course, the singer of Frankie Goes to Hollywood. And it turns out that Kim was actually his tap dance teacher back in London at some point. So Kim taught Holly Johnson tap dancing. Not sure if that's a true story, but I choose to believe it.
Og så giver jeg uden yderligere dækkedarer ordet til en af mine allermest talentfulde elever fra min tid som stepdanslærer i London. Nærmere præsentation burde egentlig være overflødig. Hello Holly, good to have you with us. The rest is basically up to you.
Hello, my name's Holly Johnson from Frankie Goes to Hollywood, and I've just arrived in Copenhagen. Here I am on 1999 with my old tap dancing teacher, Kim. He's asked me to introduce the next video, which is Relax. Here it is.
Give it to one time now. Yeah. go to it. Relax, don't do it when you wanna come.
I was really thrilled to see Frankie Goes to Hollywood, of course, and that small snippet with Holly introducing the video itself, which was a bit of a disappointment to me. The only disappointment in this Frankie section, really, and that is because they choose Relax. A live performance from the UK TV program The Tube from back in 1983. And at that point in time, I haven't seen this performance before, but I wasn't a big fan of Relax, not even back then. Being a big Frankie fan, I thought it was an okay track, and I still do, but it's my least favorite single of that they released. I was hoping for, because this being 1985 and they already released 3 singles at this point and an album, that they would have chosen something more fresh, something more exciting. I mean, this is 1985. Frankie were on the cusp of releasing, if not already released, Welcome to the Pleasure Dome as a single. So I was hoping for something else, really, but we got Relax, and we got a scantily clad woman there as well on the stage, and that probably thrilled me as a 14-year-old boy as well. So yeah, but nice to see. But now we are very near the end. We only have one more video for this program, 1999, and that came from the guitarist, I believe it is, from The Police, Andy Summers. And he had done a brand new track in connection to a movie that was out, I think in 1984, actually, called 2010, which was a follow-up movie to the classic Stanley Kubrick film 2001, A Space Odyssey. So this was a follow-up starring, amongst others, Roy Scheider, Helen Mirren, I think, was in it, if I'm not misremembering things. And I thought it was a pretty decent movie, actually. And I think David Shire did the score for this movie, but Andy Summers provided them with a single to promote this movie, a single that wasn't featured in the movie, but it was on the soundtrack, and a single. Yeah. Andy Summers and 2010. I've never been a fan of when you try to pop up classical pieces or scores, for that matter. Not even back in 1985. I never found a real interest in things like that. And by the way, that goes for all of those renditions that we had in the early 1980s as well. For different scores, you had Star Wars more prominently, I think. Star Wars theme done by a pop group or the pop orchestra or whatever they were called. Never liked those things at all. So yeah. So in this case, we of course have Andy Summers doing his rendition of Richard Strauss' Also sprach Zarathustra, which was used in Stanley Kubrick's movie 2010 as well. And here we got the poppier, rockier, pop rock variant of Also sprach Zarathustra. And no, it didn't gel with me back then. It doesn't gel with me today. The only thing I really found interesting at the time was all these shots from the movie, and I really wanted to see it. It would take me a couple of years before I actually saw 2010, but yeah. Great video. Music, not so much. Sadly, it ended on a bit of a dud, this program, but at least the video appealed to me. And most importantly, Kim Schumacher really appealed to me. I liked the way he presented things, very tongue-in-cheek, and this was probably my first exposure to him, and I would have wished that I got more exposure to Kim Schumacher through his DJing on Danish radio and so forth and so on. But hey, we can still experience all of this nowadays with the accessibility of media and all of that. So I want to thank you wherever you are, Kim, for giving us and introducing us to all of this great music throughout the years. Thank you so much. And I hope that you enjoyed this one, even if you're not from Denmark or the southern parts of Sweden, so you had a chance to see this. I want to know from you guys, because whatever country you might be in, you had your own shows, your own TV shows that were presenting music videos or were talking about music or having interviews with artists, whatever. I want to hear all about it down in the comments. Do you have any memories of this particular program? Please tell me about it, of course, but I also want to know about your local, your domestic music TV programs from your countries. Would love to hear that. So I will love you and leave you for today. I'll be back next Friday, and I haven't made my mind up what I'm going to talk about, so you just have to tune in to find out. And as usual, until next time, you all take care of yourself, you stay cool, and you keep playing that music, right? Yeah. And as usual, I'm going to bid you all a very heartfelt Swedish adjö to you all.
Som sædvanligt, det har været hyggeligt. Forsøg som sædvanligt at have det. Wow, rigtig fantastisk. På gensyn.
Movie rolls on, there ain't no more love scenes, the romance is gone. It's a one-man show, it's moving real slow, but it's picking up speed as I'm turning the key. I'm coming up, coming up, coming up, coming up, coming up. Hey, the Friday night.